Okay, welcome to our next catch up that we're having in line with the Women's World Cup. Really pleased to welcome Sian Hillis, who is, of course, our chair at the Essex FA Youth Council, and Niamh Gamble, who used to be involved in our Youth Council, but is presently the Women's and Girls Development Officer at Colchester United's Community Foundation. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, it's going to be slightly different in this catch-up. Sian is going to lead the interview, and I will pretty much just be sitting here in charge of tech, whatever that looks like. So take it away, Sian.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Niamh, as well, for coming on. We'll just start off with a bit about your involvement in the Essex County FA Youth Council. So what years were you involved and for how many years?
I think I first joined the Youth Council in 2015, 2016 maybe, and I was involved right up until I left for uni in 2018. Even before joining the Youth Council, I used to be involved as a volunteer at the County FA, helping with all sorts of events, particularly women and girls events. So yeah, I was involved with the County FA and the Youth Council for a number of years, sort of between the ages of 14, 15 and then until I was 18.
Decent, so you got a fair bit of experience. So within your years of experience and volunteering within Youth Council, what were some of the best experiences and what are the key learnings that you took away from that?
I think throughout the years volunteering and being part of the Youth Council, there was sort of numerous events that I enjoyed being a part of, but I think the big standout one for me was the Football Futures Camp that took place every year. I think going from being a participant to then helping deliver it as part of the Youth Council was such a great experience, and it's probably my first experience really being involved with the planning and the prepping of an event as big as the Football Futures Camp was. It was a whole day being delivered to young volunteers, young coaches, young referees working within the county. So yeah, that was probably one of my highlights.
Brilliant. What kind of elements of being involved in the Youth Council supported either your success at university or within your current role?
I think this one sounds very cliche, but I think just the main one is the confidence. I think when I look back to how I was when I was 14, 15 and first started volunteering, I was probably very, very quiet, just sort of got my head down, got on with things, I wouldn't really put myself out there too much. And so that the sort of gaining of confidence throughout those years of volunteering and being on the Youth Council had a huge impact to the way I've been since university or throughout university and then in my career afterwards. I think that's probably the key one. And then just in terms of wanting to be in the development side of football, I think when you look at football as a player when you're younger, you want to be a professional footballer, but that's not attainable for everybody. And seeing sort of other routes to stay within football is something that helped by being part of the Youth Council and that I took into being at university. Obviously, I worked for Brentford Football Club alongside getting my degree, and then obviously I've come into working in football now. So I think it all sort of flows really nicely together to sort of keep you in a career that you love.
Yeah, I love that. So you just alluded to your role a little bit. Can you explain a bit more about what it is that you do and your current role?
Absolutely. So I'm currently the Women and Girls Development Officer at Colchester United Community Foundation. And what that basically means is that I oversee and deliver on all of our girls' pathway from our Wildcats, Girls Development Centre, Emerging Talent Centre, Football and Education Programme, and then our newly formed women's team, which will be entering in the 23-24 season. So it's a bit of everything. I think girls can join our pathway at the age of 4 years old and now stay with us until they stop playing football. So the growth we've seen over the past sort of 18 months to 2 years have been huge with our girls pathway at the club. When I first joined just over 2 years ago now, we just had a Wildcats centre and a girls development centre, and I think in total there was probably only about 50 girls across both those programmes. Now we're hitting those in most age groups at the moment, that sort of number. So the growth has been huge. But yeah, I think a lot of what I learned working within the Youth Council and that experience has helped me so much in what I do now.
Yeah, that's massive. The growth, like just off the back of the Euros, must have been absolutely massive. Did you see a like a direct impact of that on the girls in your club?
Oh, it was huge. I remember I was on annual leave actually for when the final was on, and I try not to look at my emails too much, but the following day I checked my emails, and the amount of parents and guardians in my emails asking for how they can get involved with football. Their daughter loves it now. It made me cry. I was sitting there sobbing reading through my emails, but I think since then the uptake, whether it's at trials or coming to our open access sessions, it's been huge.
That's amazing to hear. Hopefully this is just a start and it will keep growing year on year.
Definitely.
So if you were to be if you were to look back at 18-year-old Niamh, I think you cut out again.
Oh no.
Right, I think you're back.
There we go.
Right, so just looking back at 18-year-old Niamh, are there any top tips that you would give her?
I think the biggest one I'd say is ask loads of questions. I think through being part of the youth council and being surrounded by so many brilliant coaches and development officers and people like that within the industry, don't be afraid to ask any question. I think now within a lot of my college students are now starting to volunteer in football, and I tell them whatever you do, just ask any questions. It really doesn't matter. Nothing will come across as silly. And obviously being around those types of people at the age of 17, 18, however old I was, and trying to learn off them the best way possible. I think asking those questions, whatever's on your mind, whatever it might be, just ask them. And I think in football especially, people are always willing to help. So I'd say definitely to 18-year-old me, ask more questions.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So would you recommend involvement within the youth council, and if so, why?
Absolutely, yeah. Looking back now, I think that I probably wouldn't be in the job that I'm in now without that experience in the youth council. Like I sort of mentioned there, it's great having those experiences of being on a council and looking at the development side of football, but also the people you get to meet. I think that I'm still in contact with most people that I was working surrounded by on the youth council. So one, for your networking sort of benefits, and two, the sort of the way it opens up so many different experiences for you is huge that you just wouldn't have been able to get in any other way of volunteering within football or anything like that. I think it opens up so many different doors. So I'd definitely say get involved with it.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. The network is so like intangible. At the end of the day, the people you know in football is going to be really helpful along the way. So yeah.
Absolutely,
And finally, just to close off, obviously right now the World Cup is on, Women's World Cup. So have you been watching it?
absolutely, yes. Of course I have.
Yeah. So the big question, who is your money on to win the World Cup?
My heart is saying England, and I will stick with England as my final answer. But I think the way Japan played the other day, it's got to be Japan and us in the final. It's got to be.
I would love to see that in the final.
Absolutely. 3-0 win England, Lauren James hat-trick.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Hopefully that can happen. But this World Cup's been like scores all over. Like, yeah, I think money could be on a few people, but I'm with you on England. You've got to back the home team. So
absolutely, yeah. It's been a good World Cup, but they'll bring it home, I reckon.
Brilliant. Sian, brilliant interview, and thanks, Niamh, for your time. I just thought, if Sian doesn't mind, I did have one question that came to me while I was sitting here listening. Obviously, being across your development from a young player at a really young age, Niamh, and I just wrote down referee, player, coach, development officer, and I think that's probably going to be a common challenge for our young people and how they juggle those roles if they want to do everything. What would your advice be with that kind of challenge when they're trying to juggle? Because I know that when you were involved in the referee world, you had a really great reputation within our office, and everyone wanted you to be involved in their events as a referee. But then from a development perspective, I selfishly want, you know, the path you've taken from my point of view is fantastic. But then now I'm assuming you're going to be involved back in the playing world at Colchester United, which is great news again. I guess what would your advice be for those individuals, like Sian herself, I'm assuming, juggling all those roles? What would your advice be on that area?
I think that you can't hide from the fact that it's difficult. There's obviously, looking at all those different roles, it's so difficult to manage. And I think that you almost have to sort of pick which ones you love the most. I think that for a short period of time, you can balance it and do multiple at once. But yeah, I think it's about managing your time in terms of what's more important to you. Is it sort of seeing your friends on a Sunday morning before your football match, or is it getting a game of refereeing in, or whether that's Saturday or Sunday? It's about your priorities. And even now, like you mentioned, I am getting back into playing after, I think I've been out for 2 seasons. Again, just couldn't balance playing and working as a development officer. So now that I've finally got that balance right, I'll be back playing football, coaching, and obviously my full-time role. But yeah, like I said, I think it's just about your priorities and making sure that you've got time for each of those different roles. But yeah, managing that well.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great talking to you both, and Sian, a great first interview.
Thanks.
Yes,
Okay,
well done, Sian.
Niamh, I'm going to stop recording now, but keep enjoying those games.
I love them.